Before the widespread use of tomatoes in Italy, Italians were making this meat sauce, composed of mainly onions and beef. And although the name pasta alla Genovese might suggest the recipe comes from Genoa, it actually originates from in and around the Naples area, where cooks would take secondary cuts of meat and braise it in a crazy amount of onions for several hours until everything melts together and makes a sweet and delicious ragu that is certainly worth the wait. We're going to start by removing the ends, halving and peeling about 4 pounds of onions before slicing them into half moons. The idea is to use about double the amount of onions compared to beef, which is important because the onions will provide most of the braising liquid. Cut them fairly thin, but don't worry about getting them all the same size because they'll cook down and melt into the sauce. Next, you can finely mince about 2 stalks of celery, and we also want 2 small carrots or 1 large one to complete the soffritto. Traditionally, this would be made with cheaper cuts of meat, but it's also the perfect recipe to use a chuck roast, which is ideal for long braises. So here I'm cutting a 2.5 pound roast into 6 large cubes, and you can also remove any large pockets of fat. Pat the meat dry very well with paper towels for the best possible sear, and then liberally season each side with salt and pepper. Add a tablespoon of olive oil to a Dutch oven on medium-high heat, and place in the beef. Let it cook untouched for a few minutes before flipping over so it gets nice and golden brown. Don't worry about browning all sides, just make sure a few sides from each piece are fairly dark. Then take out the beef and reserve for later. With the heat now on medium-low, add a fresh teaspoon of olive oil, before dropping in the carrots and celery, along with a handful of the sliced onion. Let that cook down for about 10 minutes, stirring occasionally. Once all the vegetables have softened, deglaze with a glass or about 1 cup of dry white wine, such as Sauvignon Blanc. Turn the heat up to medium so it can reduce and the alcohol evaporates. Go ahead and throw in a couple bay leaves as well. After the liquid has reduced by half, turn the heat back down to medium-low and nestle in the beef. Give the meat a flip and add some of the veggies on top before piling over the mound of sliced onions. It's important to add a big pinch of salt or about a half teaspoon directly to the onions so they release their moisture, creating the braising liquid. Push and mix the onions up slightly before covering with a lid for about 15 minutes, after which you will more easily be able to stir in the onions with your tongs. So now mix everything up really well, making sure that all the onions are well distributed and some pieces of meat are poking through the top. Cover once again and turn the heat all the way down to low so it can maintain a slow simmer while it braises for about 3 hours. And all we have to do is stir and flip the meat about every 45 minutes or so. Each time you check in on it, you'll notice the onions slowly disappearing and turning into the sauce. At about the 3-hour mark, the meat should be fork tender and easily fall apart. Then you can begin breaking up the remaining larger pieces into smaller chunks. We want a good mixture of shredded meat that mixes into the sauce and larger pieces to serve on top of the pasta. You can also remove the 2 bay leaves. With the pot now uncovered, turn the heat up to medium-low so the sauce can reduce further and thicken slightly. When the ragu is finished or close to completion, you can bring your pot of water to a boil and toss in a couple tablespoons of salt before dropping in your ziti, which is the traditional pasta shape for this dish. In a separate sauté pan on low heat, add a couple ladlefuls of the sauce and scoop in the pasta once it's al dente. Begin tossing the pasta with the sauce so each piece is well coated and some of the meat finds its way into the ziti. Plate it up and of course serve with some extra spoonfuls of sauce and grated cheese before enjoying. Please leave any questions or thoughts in the comments and let me know if you plan on trying this one out. Thank you for watching.